way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.
All right, in the news. So videos of Jayland Walker shooting by police raise more questions. Mr. Walker's family urged calm as protests continued in Akron, Ohio. A 25-year-old black man was killed last week by police officers in Akron, Ohio, suffered more than 60 gunshot wounds, but was unarmed at the time, the police chief said Sunday. That detail was among the facts that began to emerge in the killing of the man Jayland Walker, who died last Monday after fleeing the police during what was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. In a news conference on Sunday, the police released body camera videos of the pursuit and shooting that showed officers' actions, but deepened many questions around his death, which remains under investigation. Mr. Walker had one traffic ticket and no criminal record. The police said they initially sought to pull him over for an equipment violation and a traffic violation. 8 officers who were directly involved in the shooting have been placed on administrative leave, according to department policy, the police said. Following the release of the videos, hundreds of protesters marched in downtown Akron, demanding justice for Mr. Walker and decrying police violence, as Mr. Walker's family urged the community to remain peaceful. The police said they plan to release all of the body camera footage captured by officers at the shooting. This, they said, would include footage from the 8 officers, including directly in the shooting, along with 5 others who were at the scene. The release of the video on Sunday raised tensions that were already high in Akron because of the shooting. One day after, more than 100 demonstrators gathered just outside downtown, chanting and holding signs. Protests continued with hundreds of participating in a march and rally at City Hall organized by the Akron NAACP. May that brother rest in peace, Ashe.
Shade, who young man Jayland Walker gone too soon. Have you seen the police body footage camera? Uh,
I
camera body footage?
I have not had a chance to see that traumatic execution. No.
Yes, it was definitely an execution, and it was overkill. So we'll have to keep our eye on this case to see what happens to the race soldiers responsible for this. Also in Akron, Breonna Taylor's aunt, Jacob Blake's dad, arrested in Akron protest over police killing of Jayland Walker. And this report is from July 7th, which is today. Akron, Ohio, Jacob Blake's father and Breonna Taylor's aunt were among those arrested Wednesday night amid mounting protests of police killing of Jayland Walker. The two high-profile national critics of police violence were arrested in Akron at the northern Ohio city, where police shot Walker, 25, dozens of times as he fled a traffic stop last week. Waves of protests erupted throughout the city for several days after the Akron Police Department on Sunday released body footage cameras showing the brutal shooting. Police made numerous other arrests, according to court records. Social media posts showed people being detained downtown outside the city's Stubbs Justice Center. Hours earlier, Akron Mayor Dan Horrigan lifted a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew for the downtown, saying he hoped people would remain peaceful. Akron Municipal Court records show numerous people were arrested overnight on riot-related charges, including Jacob Blake, 55, of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who was charged with riot, resisting arrest, failure to disperse, and disorderly conduct. All are misdemeanors. Blake's son, Jacob Jr., in 2020 was shot by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and left partially paralyzed. Also arrested was Bianca Taylor, 41, of Louisville, Kentucky. She is the aunt of Breonna Taylor, a medical worker who was shot and killed by Louisville police in March 2020 raid on her apartment in that city. Bianca Taylor was charged with riot, disorderly conduct, and failure to disperse.
Wow, that's really unfortunate, just trying to protest, get some at least peaceful demonstration on the atrocities that happened to that young man. And the woman, the mom, ends up getting arrested from Breonna Taylor, who she also experienced a tragic incident. So
yeah, that's her aunt that got arrested.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was her aunt. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, but hopefully, these police will get what they serve. But now these people have another charge to face. Looks like they're just misdemeanor charges. Hopefully that they'll be exonerated.
Family mourns Greg Najee Grimes after downtown Sacramento shooting. Police seek video evidence from witness of shooting. The man who was killed in an early morning shooting in downtown Sacramento on Monday was identified as 31-year-old Gregory Najee Grimes. The shooting happened around 2 a.m. near a nightclub in the area of 15th and L Streets, Sacramento police said. 4 other men were injured in the shooting and are in stable condition. Greg was known by many as Najee. Deborah Grimes and her husband Gregory woke up to the news about their son being shot and killed overnight. Monday afternoon, Deborah spoke to KCR3 about her son, describing him as a thoughtful man who was very concerned about their well-being. Quote, "People know that Najee has a floral subscription to send me flowers randomly. Out of the blue, I get these different beautiful bouquets. He just calls to say, 'Hey, I love you,'" Deborah said, as she mourns his death. Many others who knew Najee gathered at the parents' home in atonement to remember how he gave back to Intercom High School. That's where he played football for 4 years and graduated in 2008. Najee was the first student athlete from Intercom to receive a scholarship. He then went to Boise State before returning to Intercom to work as an assistant football coach and instructor. He's described by many as a role model for the players. Terry Stark, a former football coach and later co-worker, remembered the impact that Najee had on them. Quote, "This relationship was special because he was in the first group of students I coached here. He helped teach and coach and do everything the right way. He was a leader so that other students on campus saw Gray do things the right way," end quote, Stark said. But as many gathered to remember Najee, community advocate Barry Asias says bigger and better solutions have to be made to end gun violence in Sacramento. If we keep on having the mayor tell us certain things, politicians with a certain rhetoric about we need to go do something and nothing gets done. You can't point at organizations because of what we do as prevention work, said Barry. He added that he doesn't believe gun violence is a new issue, but rather one that is getting more attention because it's happening in downtown Sacramento. Yeah, it's really unfortunate, that situation, and our shade to the brother.
Yes, rest in power, Najee. Yeah, there has been an uptick in gun violence in Sacramento, which is unfortunate. And what he said about the mayor's rhetoric is right. Nothing's getting done. It doesn't even sound like from the article that they apprehended an assailant. Or did I miss something?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're still looking. So.
All right, and for the record, that nightclub downtown is called The Mix.
The Mix. All right, well, speaking of unfortunate instances in shooting, we're going to play a clip from the Illinois shooting.
A significant update from Highland Park, Illinois, with the suspect here, Robert Cremo III, officially charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. There will be more charges, according to the local state's attorney's office there, Eric Reinhardt, who you heard from. Likely attempted murder charges, etc. We should see the suspect now in court tomorrow morning. They're being asked that he's held without the possibility of bail. Not an unexpected moment, right? I mean, this was anticipated that this person of interest, now a suspect, would be charged, but it is still incredibly significant as this investigation proceeds. I want to bring in now Dasha Burns and Pete Williams. Dasha live for us in Highland Park. Pete Williams, who is live for us on this investigation. And Pete, I'll start with you. Again, not unexpected. 7 counts of first-degree murder here, a penalty of life in prison without the possibility of parole if he were to be convicted.
Right. So Illinois is not a death penalty state. Illinois did away with the death penalty in 2011. So that would be the maximum for first-degree murder. It's the most serious charge on the books. It means that someone committed a crime, planning to kill people. Planning is a key element, knowing that what they would do would likely cause death. So it's basically premeditated murder, like many states have. And the interesting thing is no federal charges are contemplated at this point, which indicates that there is nothing that would give the federal government jurisdiction, which would be some kind of hate crime, something that suggested that the killing was carried out with intent to harm people in a specific religious or ethnic or racial group. Nothing like that so far. Earlier today, the same officers that we heard from today just now said that he was talking, that he is talking to them. We've heard the same. We've heard from law enforcement officials that he basically has given them a fairly clear account of what he did, which is how they can say that the planning for this was something that went on for several weeks. So he was a person of interest, then he was a suspect, now he's the defendant.
Wow, there you go.
So why did he do it?
I guess they're going to be figuring that out. I haven't heard anything, so I don't know.
Yeah, so the mass murderer gets apprehended, alive to live another day, tell his tales, receive due process. And Jayland Walker, innocent, no weapon on him when he was gunned down, a traffic stop, minor violation, is dead.
The double standard and hypocrisy, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, we're being invaded. Local Texas leaders say as border crisis worsens. The flood of illegal migrants coming across the border has gone from an emergency to an invasion, local Texas officials say. Leaders from Kinney County, which borders Mexico, and from several other Texas counties gathered Tuesday to declare they are under invasion. Quote, if we keep our open borders, we're not going to have a nation, end quote, Tully Shannon, a Kinney County judge, said at a press conference held in Kinney in Brackettville, Texas. Quote, we don't believe we're going to get any help from the Biden administration, end quote, he said. Quote, they are not going to do anything. So we felt like we should go out and declare, another quote, we're being invaded, end quote, which we are, quote, end quote. The number of migrants that the Border Patrol has encountered this year has been growing steadily. In January, there were more than 154,000 migrant encounters, according to Customs and Border Protection. The number jumped more than 239,000 in May, and those numbers don't include so-called gotaways, who elude detection or capture. Don McLaughlin, mayor of Uvalde, Texas, about 65 miles from the Mexico border, called the situation in his county a nightmare. Sheriff Roy Boyd of Goliad County, 100 miles south of San Antonio, described one aspect of the, quote, nightmare he has faced in his community in light of the swarms of illegal immigrants coming across the border. You hear the term invasion, and that's exactly what this is. But you hear the term immigration, and I'll tell you, this is not immigration. This is a slave trade. And you know, at the press conference, Sheriff Roy Boyd expanded on some of his statements on this being more of a slave trade than immigration. Let's see what Sheriff Boyd had to say on that.
You hear the term invasion, and that's exactly what this is. But you hear the term immigration, and I'm going to tell you this is not immigration, this is slave trade. We deal with this every day in our counties. These individuals that are being brought to us, coming through our county, and we are intercepting, they are not free to go. They are the property of the cartels who get them to Houston and then move them around the country where they have to work off their indebtedness to the cartel one way or another. Whether that be unloading drugs, selling drugs, working in restaurants, working in hotels, or whether it be forced prostitution all across the United States of America. These individuals are not free. We're importing a peon class, and we are allowing the cartels to do it. It is an invasion that is being pushed by the cartels into our country, and it must come to a stop. This may be hard for some people to swallow because you think slavery ended a long time ago, but it did not. It's taking place in modern America right now, and we're seeing it firsthand in law enforcement. Governor Abbott threw us a lifeline when we were drowning. We appreciate everything he has done for us. We appreciate the funds through Operation Lone Star. We were going under, and he threw us a lifeline, and he saved us. He gave us the ability to defend our counties when we didn't have the resources to do such. But the tide is rising, and the work is increasing, and the invasion is continuing. We've gone from having one vehicle loaded with illegal aliens and a scout vehicle in front of it to caravans of 5 or more vehicles loaded with drugs and illegal aliens coming through at a time. I do not want the cartel driving past my gate where my kids wait for the school bus in the morning every single day. That's an unnerving feeling.
Okay. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree. I don't even know what's going down there, so I don't even have, I can't even.
Do you agree with his assessment of this is akin to slavery? Because I don't. It looks like that from this picture here that they're coming here voluntarily, for one. And for two, why are the cartel controlling anything in America? I think that's where they need to, put a stop to, is if the cartel are truly indeed controlling anything that goes on in America. But as far as this being like the slave trade, I'd have to say that it looks like these people are coming here voluntarily.
Okay, now I understand your question. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a slave trade. Bottom line, these individuals have, I mean, I based on the information and previous kind of resources that we do know of people immigrating from, in particular, the southern border, that these individuals definitely come over voluntarily and aren't in the slave trade. Our ancestors, now that was a slave trade, right? I mean, even in some parts of Africa today, like, you literally have people who are like, literally like, we're taking you and we're enslaving you. In this particular case, that this is definitely not a slave trade.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But then again, just our opinions. Speaking of Africa, Uganda finds 31 MTs, which are million tons of gold ready to be mined. Signs up Chinese firm. Excuse me. The Uganda government has licensed Chinese firm Wagagai to start production in Busia district. The value of 31 million tons of gold ore stands at 12.8 trillion. In a move that could overhaul its economy, Uganda has discovered 31 million tons of gold following a series of surveys. The gold can be mined with immediate effect. The country now looks forward to attracting gold miners and investors. The Ugandan government has already licensed Chinese firm Wagagai gold mining company to start production in Busia district. A tweet posted by the Uganda Investment Authority read, "Groundbreaking ceremony of Busia's gold mine project, largest gold deposit so far, quantified in Uganda, estimated at 12.5 tons of mineable gold. Investor Wagagi's initial investment is US dollars at 50 million, $3,000 direct jobs." Let's see. According to the Ugandan government, the value of 31 million tons of gold ore stands at 12.8 trillion. The tweet said refining gold locally can lead to the generation of 3,000 direct jobs and other opportunities. The government predicts that local mining can boost the country's economy in a big way. As per reports, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has called for the local refinement of the discovered gold, calling an external refinery, quote, criminal, end quote. The president said it is criminal for anybody to argue for the continued exports of raw materials in Africa when there is 90% more value in that product that you are giving to the outsiders. Quoting the general manager of Wagagi, media reports said that the company's investments has reached 60 million. The company faced a delay in construction as it needed 2 licenses, a gold production license it obtained in March and a 21-year lease to mine gold in the country. Chinese firm begins work As per reports, the Chinese firm has invested $200 million in constructing a refining facility, according to the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Solomon Muyita. The Chinese-run firm expects to mine and start refining around 5,000 kilograms of gold a day in Busia by the end of the year. Uganda's gold exports have reportedly been on the rise since the opening of the Africa Gold Refinery in Entebbe. Pointing to 6 local gold refineries, the president has said that the time for Uganda to ship unprocessed raw gold exports is at its end. The Africa Gold Refinery in Entebbe has sanctioned by the U.S. over alleged illicit gold sourcing. So very interesting. I'm still trying to understand why, these countries in the continent of Africa still need outside help. So I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I read another story on this, and it just sounds like that Uganda didn't have the infrastructure to be able to mine gold. So that's why they bring in these outside countries. I just hope that it's not another trick bag and they don't get swindled out of all of their gold resources.
Yeah, if you really want to, protect your resources, you just keep it in-house. This just doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sure Uganda has some bright minds that can think of a way to create these particular type of machines, or maybe they feel like they're not interested in doing so. It's just odd because, Africa in itself, we're talking about thousands upon thousands of years of smelting iron, right, and other minerals, and so you're like, modern day, you can't do that. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you, definitely. If I would have found the gold, that's like win the lottery. I'm not telling nobody. I do it myself, keep it in house when nobody know I had no gold.
Word. They be trying to get like, what is that? Wakanda?
Definitely.
Trying to keep it a secret, because you know how that happens.
Keep that on the low. All right, so let's see. And we've spoken on this before. We did a live pop-up. When was that? The 4th of July, so Monday. So we talked about this already, but it's worth mentioning again with the ACA3 ruling. Let's just read what's going on here. Californians won't weigh involuntary servitude amendment. California will not consider amending its constitution to eliminate indentured servitude as a possible punishment for crime after Governor Gavin Newsom's administration predicted that it could cost the state billions of dollars to pay minimum wage to prison inmates. Democratic Senator Sidney Kamlager said Thursday that she ran out of time, and supporters after the measure barring involuntary work without pay last week fell 7 votes short of the 2/3 margin it needed in the Senate. She elected not to bring it back for another try after she said it still lacked support before lawmakers adjourned Thursday for a month-long summer recess. Quote, "One of the challenges we've had is people are conflating policy with a moral argument about taking our words that are historical, that are loaded, that are remnants of a slave past, and that are implemented in ways that made people less human," end quote, Kamlager said in an interview. The policy questions could have been hashed out later, she argued. The final impact feared by Newsom's Department of Finance hasn't been an issue in 3 states, Colorado, Nebraska, and Utah, that previously made similar changes, said Kamlager, and Jamila Land, who is both a spokeswoman for the California Abolition Act Coalition and a coordinator for Abolish Slavery National Network. And voters in Alabama, Louisiana, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont will consider similar ballots measures in November. Quote, "It's the height of hypocrisy for California to be stepping onto the national stage as a haven of progressiveness right now when its leaders continue to enshrine slave labor practices in the state." End quote. The Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, a reform group that supported the amendment, said in a statement.
Well, I think we've already talked about this, and
And we're
really
going to
not
keep
much.
talking about it because we're going to keep talking about it until we talk about it into existence. Slavery needs to end in California, like they said. Claims to be this progressive state, but at the end of the day, is it just lip service and rhetoric?
Well, speaking of rhetoric, whites from Africa claiming African American status. One hears many anecdotes about white Africans claiming African American status to benefit from affirmative action. Does it ever actually happen? I have heard in response a lot of anecdotes about people of African descent who are not, quote, black, end quote, successfully claiming African American status when applying to college or graduate school to benefit from affirmative action. Sometimes the purported beneficiary is North African. North Africans, such as Egyptians and Moroccans, are officially classified as white. Sometimes the purported beneficiary is a white South African. Such stories are entirely plausible. The Department of Education, like all federal agencies, defines the African American/black category as involving descent from, quote, one of the black races of Africa, end quote. Colleges are required to use that definition in reporting statistics to the DOE. However, the common application for college, though implicitly adopting the standard definition, does not provide that definition to applicants. Rather, it asks whether the applicant identifies as Black or African American, including African and Caribbean. It's entirely possible that a naive or willful non-Black applicant could conclude that since his ancestors recently lived in Africa, he can justifiably claim African American status. Nevertheless, despite all the anecdotes I have heard and despite their plausibility, in the course of my voluminous research, I came across only one documented example of a non-Black applicant claiming African American status, described in the Chronicle of Higher Education in 1994. It involved an applicant to Georgetown University Law Center named Raymond Teichman, who checked off the Black/African American box and was admitted. Mr. Teichman, who is white, later wrote Georgetown to explain that he considered himself African American because several generations of his father's family had lived in Tanzania. Not so fast, said Georgetown, which told Mr. Teichman in May that it would not allow him to enroll until the case was investigated. Georgetown sent his case to the Law School Admissions Council, which unsurprisingly decreed that it would be improper for Georgetown to classify him as an African American applicant. Mr. Teichman ultimately withdrew his Georgetown application and decided to attend Notre Dame Law School, where he was on the dean's list. It's not clear from the story whether he was admitted to Notre Dame, where he had also attended college as an African American.
The grift is real.
And it's gonna get even realer, if that's a word. Yeah, it's gonna get realer because, as we get closer to the reparations solution and proposals coming down next year, especially here in California, and eventually on the federal level, there's going to be a lot of grifters, a lot of people trying to claim Black or African American status. And for those who've been following reparations, that's why it's so important to understand why lineage-based reparations is vital. I mean, we just have to have it as that. So any other way is going to cause some complication.
Definitely. But off the bat, this guy, because it says he's from Tanzania or somewhere, so he would not qualify just based on his immigrant status.
True.
All right. Before that, did we have a video on what, white supremacists are up to out here in America these days? Let's take a look.
In the city of Boston handled a group of white supremacists who marched over the weekend and are accused of assaulting a black man. WBZ's Louisa Moeller is live for us in Boston tonight. And Louisa, what do they say happened here?
Well, Ken, police say they had no advance knowledge that this group, the Patriot Front, was coming to Boston. It's what the Anti-Defamation League refers to as a flash demonstration. And we know at least some of these men came from out of state. Now the question is, did law enforcement do enough once they knew the march was happening?
We did not know exactly what was happening prior to it starting, and the good news is people called 911.
U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins says law enforcement was caught off guard when roughly 100 members of the white supremacist group Patriot Front marched into Boston on Saturday wearing masks, Reclaim America t-shirts, and carrying shields.
The First Amendment provides a level of protection where these groups creep right up to the edge of the boundaries of that.
After a private meeting with law enforcement on the event, Mayor Michelle Wu told reporters that the First Amendment prevented police from stopping the march. The FBI not even able to open an investigation into the domestic group unless it meets a certain standard.
The existence of a potential federal crime, the threat or use of force or violence in conjunction with some sort of a social or political agenda.
And now some are questioning how police handled the alleged assault of black artist Charles Morrell by members of Patriot Front outside Copley Square. Did any Boston police officers or other law enforcement view the alleged assault against Mr. Morrell in person?
For everything I know, my understanding is they did not witness the assault in front of their face.
Morrell's spokesperson, Reverend Kevin Peterson, says Morrell has a different story.
I believe that if Mr. Morrell were asked if law enforcement was present during the time of the assault, he would state the affirmative.
Boston police say they are reviewing video footage of the alleged assault on Mr. Morrell, and that case is now in the hands of BPD's Civil Rights Unit. Mr. Morrell has also obtained an attorney. Live outside Boston Police Headquarters, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
Wow, man, that is crazy. I know, Boston has been notorious for being a very racist state. And if the cops were there and then they're lying on top of it, man, that is just, that's horrible.
Nobody saw nothing. All right. Granderson, Texas keeps trying to make slavery sound less slavery-ish. Involuntary relocation. That's one of the euphemisms a group of educators in Texas came up with as part of a curriculum that would introduce the transatlantic slave trade to second graders. Now, fortunately, the Texas State Board of Education rejected involuntary relocation, which sounds more like what happens when your car gets towed, not centuries of government-sanctioned kidnappings. But the fact remains that these educators are tasked with finding a way to make slavery sound less slavery-ish. If this group allowed involuntary relocation to reach the public, that makes me wonder what they'll come up with next. Then again, Texas is where a 9th grade social studies textbook rebranded the enslaved as immigrant workers in a caption that read, "The Atlantic Slave Trade." Between the 1500s and 1800s brought millions of workers from Africa to the southern United States to work on agricultural plantations. Because slavery wasn't an inhumane institution, it was hundreds of years of employment opportunities in a foreign country. Today, Texas educators are spending part of their summer trying to figure out a way to make slavery sound even less awful because Republican lawmakers are afraid white children are going to feel bad when they learn the truth. Those aren't just my thoughts, but the message of Representative Steve Troth, a member of the Texas House of Representatives who wrote the bill opposing critical race theory and forcing more whitewashing of Texas history. Quote, "We don't need to burden our kids with guilt for racial crimes that they had nothing to do with," end quote, he said.
Wow, okay, so, I don't want to belabor all this, but I think I want to go back up to the paragraph that says, because slavery wasn't an inhumane institution, it was hundreds of years of employment opportunities in a form.
Yeah, that line caught my attention too, and it comes after the quote, so I am assuming that maybe that was satirical from the author, and maybe the actual passage just ends after the quotes, because, yeah, I can't believe anybody would.
I hope that's satire, because if this individual is serious, they need to stop writing.
Yeah, but the passage within the quotes, it still says the Atlantic slave trade between the 1500s and 1800s brought millions of workers from Africa to the southern United States to work on agricultural plantations. It's still BS.
Yeah, no, they're trying to soften the blow of what happened to our ancestors, right?
Right, but it was just in the article that we read on immigration. That was also Texas. So they like to invoke slavery when it suits them or when it benefits them, but when it comes to something like curriculum for school, they want to whitewash it and revision it. But when it comes to them and immigration, they want to evoke it and say that make it sound like they're going through slavery or anyways, it's just more hypocrisy.
Absolutely. All right, so more in the news. R. Kelly placed on suicide watch after being sentenced to 30 years in prison. R. Kelly has been placed on suicide watch after being sentenced to 30 years in federal prison, reports CNN. According to his attorney, Jennifer Bongen, the disgraced singer is not suicidal, and she added that Kelly has been afraid of being put on suicide watch. She called the suicidal watch placement, quote, illegal, end quote. "We are in the process of filing an emergency rule to show cause with the courts," the statement read. MDC Brooklyn's confinement of Mr. Kelly to suicide watch is illegal, and they will be held accountable for it. The irony of putting someone on suicide watch when they're not suicidal it actually causes more harm, said Bongen. It's punishment for being high profile, and it's horrifying, frankly. She continued. To put someone under suicide watch under those conditions is cruel and unusual when they don't need it. Bongen said she asked Kelly to email her once. He was taken back into the Federal Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn after his sentencing Wednesday, but never got an email from him. She was unaware of his status at the detention center until prosecutors requested information from the facility. Kelly was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for one charge of racketeering and 8 counts of violations of the Mann Act, a sex trafficking law. Since 2019, Kelly has been jailed in Brooklyn. He still faces child pornography and obstruction of justice charges in Chicago, where the trial is scheduled to begin on August 15, 2022.
So they finally caught up with R. Kelly, it looks like. But you know who they haven't caught up with is Miss Carolyn Bryant Dunham who was responsible for the death of Emmett Till. Through her lies, it looks like there's been some new developments lately. Let's take a look at what's going on with there.
Warrant was found in the killing of Emmett Till in 1955. It was in the basement of a Mississippi courthouse. Today, a group of activists gathered in Raleigh, once again calling for the arrest of Carolyn Bryant Donham. That is the woman at the center of this nearly 70-year-old civil rights case. CBS 17's Brea Hollingsworth is live in Raleigh for us tonight with much more on what this group is asking for. Brea?
Yeah, that group showed up to 2 addresses where they believe Carolyn Bryant Donham lives, but they didn't have any luck in finding her. Donham has been a central figure in this case for years, which has found its way back into the national spotlight.
Got a warrant for your arrest?
A piece of history recently found in a Mississippi courthouse basement has put new attention on the death of teenager Emmett Till. That history, an unserved warrant for the arrest of Carolyn Bryant Donham.
She lied. Carolyn lied. She did what? She lied. She lied on Emmett Till. That's right. And her lies and her conspiring with her husband led to the gruesome death of Emmett Till, whose death was a major spark behind the entire civil rights movement.
Today, attorney Malik Shabazz, along with other activists, delivered eviction papers asking Donham to leave the state of North Carolina.
Open up the door.
Activists say they want her arrested, saying her accusations that Till whistled at her led to his eventual abduction and gruesome murder in Mississippi back in 1955.
Carolyn Bryant Donham is a fugitive from justice. Carolyn Bryant Donham has ran and hid and ducked from justice long enough.
We want to get this message to her that she has a warrant for her arrest, and we ain't gonna stop until she turns herself in.
Now, Attorney Shabazz says that he is planning to be in Mississippi this week to pressure the LaFleur County District Attorney to enforce the warrant that was never served on Donham. In Raleigh, Brea Hollingsworth, CBS 17 News.
All right, Brea, thank you.
If you're being...
Yeah, shout out to Malik Shabazz, man. Like, that brother's been putting a lot of work for black people, man. Especially him with the new Black Panther Party, and may he rest in power and peace. The wonderful and great Khalid Muhammad. Yeah, Malik Shabazz, man. I'm glad they went out there and they're doing something, putting words to action out there, because that woman definitely needs to be in jail.
Right, justice needs to be served, and our coalition partner, one of our CJEC coalition partners, NAASD, actually put out a press release on this. If you're on Twitter, swing by the NAASD Twitter page to take a look at the press release that was released, standing in solidarity with the Till family. So go check that out when you get a chance, fam. All right. And we've got NFL partners with Ice Cube's contract with Black America Institute to increase Black wealth. The NFL announced Thursday that it was partnering with the contract with Black America Institute, an economic inclusion initiative created by Ice Cube, reports ESPN. Ice Cube, along with longtime business partner and entertainment lawyer Jeff Kowalnitz and advisor Jerron Smith and Chris Pickerton, first launched this initiative in 2020. Troy Vincent, the NFL's executive vice president of football operations, worked with the rapper actor to present the idea to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. According to the report, the partnership with Ice Cube's CWBA will focus on identifying league-wide opportunities in the financial, tech, and production sectors, with a concentration on increasing direct and indirect spending to national Black businesses to help close America's racial and economic wealth gap. It was cool connecting with somebody like Troy Vincent and really delivering our plan, Ice Cube said on the AP Pro Football podcast. Roger Goodell jumped in with both feet, saying, "Hey, we got to get this done. We have to make this happen. We feel like if you tackle the huge wealth gap between Black people and white people in this country, that should solve a lot of the problems that's there," added Ice Cube. One thing was to go after some of the biggest companies in the country that rely on Black consumers or Black workers, and the biggest one that we have focused on was the NFL. In an effort to increase economic equity, the NFL has invested and earmarked $125 million with Black companies including Ariel Investments, City First Broadway Bank, Cover Communications, and Fearless Technology over the past year. In a statement, Goodell expressed his excitement about the league's new partnership. Our partnership with CWBA is another reminder that partnering with international organizations is critical to everything that we do at the league. His statement read, Black businesses play a major role in our country's economic prosperity. We understand these businesses have not always had the opportunity for exponential growth, so we are pleased to have partners like Ice Cube and his organization CWBA in a continued collective push towards greater economic inclusion. Ice Cube also noted he plans to forge similar partnerships with other professional sports leagues and major corporations. I'm glad the NFL stepped up, he said. They're the biggest and most powerful and most influential to other Fortune 500 companies. So we want them to lead the charge. They've already allocated to spend up to $125 million. So we want that to turn into $500 million, maybe $1 billion, and then move on to other leagues and hopefully other companies like Nike and the big boys, and tell them to adopt the same thing. Shout out Ice Cube.
Yeah, shout out to that brother, man, doing his thing. Yeah, this is big, and I'm just gonna put it out there. TD Hip Hop did a great recap on Jay-Z's NFL partnership, comparatively speaking to Ice Cube's contract with Black America Institute and this NFL partnership. A lot of people are questioning Jay-Z's motive, and especially when the, I guess, partnership is supposedly supposed to be based around social justice efforts. And, you know, people are really like going in on Jay-Z saying, yeah, bro, this just doesn't look right. You know, and this is just my opinion. I mean, Jay-Z hasn't really done too much of anything for the Black community anyway. And so it's unfortunate that, you know, more Black celebrities and quote unquote entertainers that are in a high level can't do for more of their own, you know, Black community. But at the same time, this is a good move, definitely. So we'll see, you know, how much this is actually going to help with Black business. And also, you know, let's just call it what it is. I mean, this is all good, but the bottom line is the Black community, specifically those who descend from U.S. child slavery, we need these reparations. You know, this definitely will not suffice and replace for what the government owes, and also for a lot of what these corporations owe. So I'm gonna land my plane right there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not going to NFL partnership our way out of the conditions that have been created for the Black community, but it is a start, and I do commend Ice Cube for his efforts, even though he ignored my invitation to come out and speak at our reparations rally. But you know, we give him a high five anyways on his efforts.
Samia Gore founded a line of plant-based supplements to provide health solutions for Black women. As a busy mom of 4, Samia Gore was tired of the constant grind to maintain her healthy lifestyle. Outside of her federal government job, she had limited time and resources for cooking nutritious meals, getting enough rest, fitting and exercise, and prioritizing self-care. Finally, Gore decided to take matters into her own hands with a system that would streamline and simplify her well-being needs. She created Body Complete RX, BCRX, in 2017, the world's first plant-based weight management system and centering health specifically for Black women. Taking a holistic approach to health and well-being, Gore worked with renowned nutritionist Dr. Ruby Lathon, a certified holistic nutritionist and advocate for plant-based nutrition. Together, they formulated and launched 5 product lines, each of which prioritizes a different wellness goal with the intention of supporting a well-rounded, healthier lifestyle. The plant-based supplement systems were developed with a complete wellness journey in mind and provide solutions for healthy meals options on the go, increased energy throughout the day, easier ways to relax into bedtime, or a single pill to provide all the vitamins and minerals needed to feel your best. So shout out to that sister for doing her thing.
Yeah, congrats, Samuel Gore. That, wishing you much success. All right, so a little rundown. As we know, those in California, the budget has been passed, and the ballot measures that will be decided in November by public vote have been decided. We know that unfortunately ACA 3 did not make the cut. That's what we were hoping to get, ACA 3, a proposition number, and get it on the ballot, but that did not happen. We'll keep pushing though. All right, but here's what did make the ballot for November and what to look for. Okay, here's a look at legislative initiative and referendum measures that will appear on the November 8th ballot, along with their assigned numbers. So we have Proposition 1, and this is a constitutional amendment that, if approved, would enshrine protections for abortion rights in the California Constitution.
All right, Proposition 26. This would allow on-site sports wagering at specific privately operated horse racing tracks in 4 counties, which would include Alameda, Los Angeles, Orange, and San Diego for those older than 21.
I'll have to look into that one because I thought that was already a thing. I've been to bet on the horse races out here in Sacramento, Cal Expo, but so I'll have to look into that one. All right, Proposition 27, another sports wagering related measure. This one would legalize online and mobile sports wagering offered by federally recognized Native American tribes and eligible businesses.
Proposition 28, this measure would provide additional funding for arts and music education in all K-12 public schools, including charters.
Proposition 29, this measure would require a physician, nurse practitioner, or physician assistant with at least 6 months of relevant experience to be on site during treatment at an outpatient kidney dialysis clinic.
Proposition 30, to support the state's promotion of electric vehicles and wildfire prevention efforts, the measure would increase the personal income tax on those making more than $2 million by 1.75%.
And Proposition 31. This measure would solidify a 2020 law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom that banned the sale of certain flavored tobacco products. It requires a majority of voters to approve the ban in order for the law to be implemented. So that is what to look for in November, fam. If you're out in California, read the fine print. We didn't read all of the language in the measure, so if you want to take a screenshot of that to read it, or go to one of the trusted,
I think Ballotopia, I think they're a pretty good site too.
Yeah. Go there and get yourself educated on these propositions.
True. I think we should eventually probably have a follow-up show within. Man, this is what, July? I think it's coming up in November, so we should definitely probably have another show, probably a month out, with the family, just to make sure that everybody's up to speed.
Yeah,
what
make
they're
sure
voting
you
for,
go. Yeah, make sure you go subscribe and hit that notification bell at ETN Media YouTube, and so you could look for our, November 8th ballot unpacking show. And probably going to be getting out a voter guide too, hopefully, if time permits. So yeah, look for all those things, fam. And I guess
right.
that's it for this edition of In the News.